Welcome to the tutorial for the feedback engine of Widesizer. You have installed the feedback engine and immediately started the whole thing via the installation program. There is the first hint, which is also shown above. Attention! You can only save if you start the program in administrator mode. You can recognize this by the effect that if you press X here, for example in the playlist, nothing happens in the playlist. Therefore, I ask you start the whole thing in administrator mode. Then you can also save, and he also takes over the settings accordingly. You can also share the folder of the installation. This is up to you. But you can already see here that I can edit the playlist and accordingly remove the presets, and so on and so forth. Then the second hint, the denoise. That's this button here. It only works with NVIDIA graphic cards. If you have an AMD or Intel graphics card or whatever, the denoise only works with NVIDIA. As soon as you have other and turn on the button here, the out signal turns black. Okay, let's come to the overview of the feedback engine. On the left side you have the input signal that goes into the feedback engine. Then here is the output signal. Then you have a preset manager, where you can select the presets that you want to be pre-assigned there. In the mapper, it is so that you can use Shift plus the number 1 to 9 or Q to I on the keyboard to select the presets. You can also change assignment by pressing Learning here. I will change it for example. Then you will see it says K2. I set this back to K1. K means keyboard and 1 number 1. If you go down here in the global settings, you can change from keyboard to MIDI. You can also use MIDI to change assignment by pressing Learning. Then you can see here the playlist of the presets and also the possibility to save presets. I'll come back to this in more detail later. Here you have the reference on the right. In other words, which preset you have just selected, which operation mode and which transfer mode you have selected. This save button is very important. As soon as you record any preset, you must also save it with this button. Otherwise, your records will be lost when you close. Okay, let's move on to the parameter settings section. Here you have the in level. You can also see it here when I increase the contrast. Or you can make it a little bit higher so that this changes here. Next comes the transformation motion settings and the level for the feedback effect. You are welcome to set this, but it is not recommended. You can see it more as a reference, especially if you combine the engine with another programs. You can also customize it here. Then it's quite good if you can see that. Well, first of all, it is of course important to get a signal. You can do this here in the global settings. You have the option of selecting 4 different sources. The first source is a video. You can use the plus button on the right to select other videos. The second option is an SPR out in. This means, for example, from Resolume or another program. You can also go in here. And then you have a third option. This is a video device, such as a webcam. OBS is currently selected here, but you can also use the webcam from the laptop. If I know, for example, the signal 3, the webcam should be visible here. And the fourth option is to visualize an audio signal. There are different variants you can choose. More on this later. Right, I'm going back to the video clip. You can see here the possibilities to go out of the engine. With SP out to another program, you can also change the channel name. And you have the possibility to use a monitor as output. Monitor 0 is now selected, which is actually monitor 1 shown in the Windows settings. I will now here to open. Then you can see I have the image here. It is set to custom, which does not filling the screen, but create a smaller picture. But you can also switch with the border on a window and move it as you like. If you set it on fill, for example, you will get a full screen on your selected monitor. I leave it like this for now. Well, that would be the in and out settings for now. Let's go to the page levels, which you can also see above. These are very important settings for the engine. First of all, there is the possibility to set the sensitivity of the individual influence. This means this fader influences brightness, contrast, gamma, saturation for feedback and input level. This is very practical because the engine is really sensitive. I load the preset kit again so that it's clear what I mean by that. You can see now here, if I increase the gamma, the whole thing gets fast overdriven. The sensitivity is already reduced. If something like overdriven happens, you have the opportunity to react quickly anyway. Reduce the intensity. That's also the most important thing that you actually need to have in your mind. You can adjust the intensity here if something overdrives. You can react quickly to get the feedback engine under control. Just try it out. Here you can see brightness, contrast and gamma. This is the feedback and this is the in level. And here below you can see a color grading option. You can compare it with a color filter. LOTs comes from professional film production and is often used to create a certain color mood in the image. I have created some especially for VJing, currently only sepia style, but there will be more soon on the website. Just take a look, you can select here and accordingly you see it on your picture. Okay, let's move on to the next tab. That would be the transformation and motion parameter page. Here you have the option to transform the image. This means you can move with scale forwards and backwards. You can already see it here. The image again reacts quite quickly only to this back and forth action. That's why I would now like to reduce intensity a little bit. And yes, then you can see here how you can bring it back and forth. Good. And here you have the possibility to change the position. In other words, where does the image sit? These are the three transformation options. You again have the option of changing the sensitivity, but only for the two-dimensional circular motion. I'll come to that in a moment. Then you have the rotation here. This means that the image rotates. You can see here that it continues to rotate endlessly. Left is to the left and right is to the right. If you want to change this behavior, you must select direct rotation. Then you will see how the image does not move accordingly, but is fixed. And then comes the circular motion. I would turn this down here. Circular motion means motion in a circle. So it isn't a rotation. It is a circular motion. If I now increase the radius, then the image moves in a circle with the setting radius. Now, the larger the circle radius is, the faster it naturally tries to move in speed in the circle. That's why the motion sensitivity, which what I meant earlier, is very useful. The larger the circle, the better it is to turn it down so that you can achieve a slow movement here. That would be the two-dimensional circular movement. Now you still have the 3D movement option. In other words, from front to back. This means that the picture moves in a circle from front to back. You can also set the radius and the speed. You can see here how the image moving forwards and backwards. This switch is always very good so that you can return to the starting point. Then you have the feedback speed here. You can already see here there is a strobe. This is now the first pretty fast environment. You can see that you can bring it in the kind of slow motion. These are the transformation and motion settings. Let's move on to the layer settings. Here it is also very important to know, layer settings always change depending on the operation mode. You have many possibilities. I would recommend maybe start with add. For example, the preset 2, because this is easier to control and manage the image. Operation mode is add. You can already see here, when I change the settings, the behavior changes accordingly. In other words, the look in general. Sometimes it is that you have to say that the front layer is better when it is in the background. You can see this particularly well with a top. If I change this swap order operation, then the image is either up or down. With some operation modes, it is quite interesting. With add, for example, nothing happens here, because the image is simply merged one to one. You can also switch it off here, in which case you have poor feedback. You can only influence with the intensity to make it in fade. So, now it is the case that the image, especially when it is moved and transformed, also in the scale. I'm going to turn the whole thing off for a moment. I'm going to go back here. That is then actually a black space would be created. You can see that quite clearly here. In other words, this is not an image that has a border, but a border would be created here. Yes, we can create an edge, I think. Yes, exactly. You can see the edge. This is also how the setting of the transfer mode get into interest. Here you have the possibility to expand the image. This means to repeat or mirror it. As you can see here, it actually looks nicer and cleaner. These are the most important settings you can make here. And if you then scale it here, then the whole thing is mirrored, as you can see here. I'm now going to make another again on repeat. That looks different. It's repeated, but there you also have edges. Okay, then we come to the audio algorithm settings. Maybe you can still remember. Back here you have the option of selecting how the signal should come in. And audio means the corresponding 4. Here you have the option of setting the algorithm that you would like to use. There are very different algorithms. For example, here quite fast, or there another one, or here a slightly quieter one. Rhythm 4 and one more amplitude at the very end. There will be a few more updates later to be able to influence a little bit more. Okay, good. Then I go back to 1. So, now we have basically discussed the interface. Now I'm going to show you how you can record a preset. First of all, it is important to type in a reference here. Only if you look here at preset, it makes sense to assign a preset name. I'll do a test here now and would now save this preset here with record queue and then the whole test. And here it is also insert and record. The whole thing is already here. The preset test is available. And yes, you can fire it off immediately. I would now fire another one here and then fire the test here. You can also see the reference name. That's the one that's here. And it fires test. A preset switch is also cross-faded. You can also set here at the back with the seconds. Important with the preset is always to save. So really go to save here. You can select these presets which you have saved here, can also select them again here and assign them accordingly. Yes, exactly. That's a raw overview for now. In the following tutorials I will go into more detail. The other options such as MIDI settings and how you can influence the recording of the presets. That means you can say what it should save at all. You can also automatically play other videos, etc. I will show this and more useful methods in detail later. I hope you enjoy. See you next time.